just have to be better. We just have to be better.
Better, smarter, quicker.
And smarter.
Dance backwards in high heels.
Welcome back to Morning Joe. We are talking about, you're talking about women.
Yes.
Have to get up earlier, have to be better, have to be.
And we are, and we do. Joining us now, Republican Congresswoman from Minnesota, presidential candidate Michele Bachmann. She's the author of the new book, Core of Conviction, just out. There it is. Great to have you on the show.
Talk about the book, Congresswoman. Why did you write it? What's it about?
Well, it's my life story, and it lets people know who I am. A lot of people don't realize that I came from a middle-class family, and we went to below poverty. And when I was 12, I had to start embracing the responsibilities of life. My mom did the best she could as a single mom, but she couldn't even afford to buy my glasses. And so I had got babysitting jobs, and it really was a wonderful teaching experience for me. And I put myself through college and law school, my postdoctorate program in tax law. And when we got older, we didn't forget kids. And so my husband and I took 23 foster children into our home. We raised them up and launched them into the world. And we started a charter school, the first one in the country, the first K-12 charter school for at-risk kids.
Talk about your mom, if you will, and how hard it was for your mom to raise you, and
it was really tough, because she'd been a lifelong homemaker, and so she had to go out into the work world and figure out how to make this work, and it was suffering. We lost our home, almost everything in it. I'll never forget when she set card tables up in the driveway and all her wedding gifts and the pretty things went out there, and there's a lot of women that are in that situation right now. That's one thing that I see. A lot of people are dealing with foreclosures. It is truly a hard time right now, and especially for women, because when a woman loses her nest, her home, she knows that's her kids, and her kids are put at risk, and it's really a tough time for women.
All right, so let's talk politics and the Republican race. What openings do you see for yourself coming up? We are 4 weeks away from Iowa. You got front runners, Mitt Romney and Newt Gingrich. How do you get past them? How do you get through this?
You're exactly right, but Newt Gingrich and Mitt Romney are the consummate insiders. If you want poster children for insiders on Washington, D.C., you can't get more insider.
But Newt says he's an outsider.
Well, but isn't that
after
interesting?
$100 million.
After $100 million, because his offices are located on the Rodeo Drive of Washington, D.C., which is K Street, and that's what he's been doing for years, is being an influence peddler, and he's been the consummate insider. And I think that's where I stand out, because in my book, Core of Conviction, people see very clearly that I am the consistent conservative. I'm 55 years old. I've been a real person and a consistent conservative my whole life, and that's what Tea Parties are looking for. Who's the real deal? Who's authentic? I am not a chameleon. I'm not come lately to being a conservative. I have a lifetime. Whereas if you look at Mitt Romney or if you look at Newt Gingrich, they have been the ones who put into place the backbone for Obamacare. They also supported the $700 billion bailout. They've been on board with working for Freddie Mac, for instance, in Newt Gingrich's case. So
making a lot of money.
Making a lot of money.
We may not agree on everything, but I would agree on what you just said about the two front runners. So the question is, why are they doing so well? And why isn't your message resonating?
Well, I think we're peeling back the layers right now. Just like 2 weeks ago, everyone would have thought Herman Cain is our next president. 2 months ago, everyone would have thought Rick Perry is the next president. As the voters are looking at the candidates, they're making their decision. And a month from now, remember, 30 days is an eternity in this race.
Politics,
it's like political Wall Street right now. I think we are perfectly positioned to be able to win, because people are going to see that I am the real deal. That's what Tea Partiers are looking for. Who's going to mean what they say and say what they mean? And I have the proven record of an outsider who's been a fighter in Washington.
So let me ask you, because I on this show, in my Politico columns, I talk about the inconsistencies of Newt, a guy that I've known and worked with since 1994. And it's hard for me to figure out what drives me the craziest, whether it was him being the champion of a $7 trillion Medicare scheme that's going to bankrupt America in 2004, whether it was calling Paul Ryan a right-wing social engineer, a radical, whether it was getting paid $1.6 million to prop up an institution that almost destroyed this economy. I've got a top 10, a top 20 list. Let me ask you, what has Newt done that to you proves he is not a conservative?
I think the fact that he has been on the take for over $100 million to influence peddle in Washington should tell people something about the fact that he is no outsider. And what you're seeing right now is an ability that he has to be able to project himself as a conservative, but there's nothing to back it up. It's the same as Mitt Romney. You hear it in the debates over and over. You'd think these guys have been the standard bearer for the conservative movement in the Republican Party, but they're the great pretenders. They're frugal socialists. And people want something that's very bold, very different. They won't get it in either Mitt Romney or Newt Gingrich. And I've been the one who has clearly been at the tip of the spear fighting on these issues, whether you agree with them or not. I'm the one who brought 40,000 Americans to the Capitol to fight against Obamacare. I fought against the Dodd-Frank bill, and I wrote the legislation to repeal Dodd-Frank. I wrote the legislation to repeal Obamacare. So, honestly, who is going to go in and repeal Obamacare as President of the United States? Mitt Romney, who put it into place in Massachusetts? Newt Gingrich, who had the idea for it in the first place and wants to mandate that everyone buy the insurance? Or me, the person who brought 40,000 people to fight it? So it's who's the pretender and who's real.
Well, and by the way, just to put some meat on these bones, Newt Gingrich, going back to 1993, has supported Mark Halperin, the very individual mandate for health care that a lot of conservatives like me are hoping the Supreme Court overturns next year. And yet he's going to be the champion to overturn Obamacare. I just don't get it.
You've been pretty outspoken both here and in the last few days about the lack of conservative credentials from your point of view of those two candidates. We've got two debates coming up in Iowa. Can we expect you to carry that argument in the debates?
Well, no question. I think that's a hallmark of mine, is that I do say what I mean and I mean what I say. And so there'll be no deviation, because we have to stand up in the debates and stand for our positions, and I'll be happy to do that.
Do you expect a big turnout in the caucuses? On the one hand, you've got a party that really wants to beat President Obama. On the other hand, we're talking to Tom Brokaw earlier, there doesn't seem to be the big crowds, the engagement that we've seen. Would you look to a big turnout overall in Iowa, in South Carolina, in New Hampshire?
I think you're going to see at least as consistent with previous years, because there is really a pent-up desire to make sure that Barack Obama is a one-term president. But also, if you look at the numbers, the number of people who are undecided remains still at about 70%. So I think you're going to see a lot of shift and a lot of movement. People will make up their mind in the last week.
Congresswoman, let me ask you about the issue of the week in Congress, because it says a lot about the differences and the contrast between President Obama and Republicans like you in Congress, and that's the payroll tax cut. The argument from the White House is, and I'd be interested to get your take, is that Republicans are for tax cuts unless they're for middle-class workers. And they're against raising a tax, a 3% surtax on people who make $1 million or more in this case. So protecting the wealthy, not protecting the middle class. What do you say to that criticism from the White House?
Well, what I would say is, a year ago, we had the same debate about cutting the payroll tax, and I was against it a year ago, and I'll tell you the reason why. Because I knew that it would blow a $111 billion hole in the Social Security Trust Fund. We can't do that to senior citizens. I opposed it last year. We did blow that hole in the Social Security Trust Fund. It's running in the red, which means we have to go into the General Treasury, which is broke, to get money to send out checks to senior citizens. I still oppose that payroll tax cut. And also, President Obama said that it would create jobs. There's not one shred of evidence that lowering the payroll tax rate created jobs. So his premise was wrong, but also it's hurting senior citizens. I won't do that.
So you don't think it's stimulative?
No, it's
not
not stimulative. If it was stimulative, thank you for saying that point, because that's also another reason to oppose it, because it wasn't stimulative, and that was the president's point. He believed that it would. If it did, that would be great. It'd be a reason to support it, but it didn't. We need job creation. That's one reason also why I am so adamant against Obamacare. It's the #1 job killer in the country right now, according to small business.
Beyond Obamacare, beyond repealing the president's health care law, what's your best idea for creating jobs today in the United States?
Well, I'm a former federal tax litigation attorney. I'm one of the only ones in the United States Congress, and certainly the only one running for the presidency. And I want to abolish the tax code and put in place a pro-growth tax code where you lower the rates on businesses and on individuals. But I also want to make sure that people who are wealthy pay at least as much as the middle class is paying in taxes. But what sets my plan apart, I want to make sure everyone pays something. something. So even if you come from the lower income, I think you all benefit from this country. People should pay at least $10 a year or something, because it changes your mindset if you're not participating in the tax system.
Let me ask you about incomes, because the income disparity that we are seeing in this country makes us stand out internationally in a way that we don't like. How important is fixing that in your agenda long term, in terms of trying to overcome what is a lack of mobility now among the middle to lower classes? And also, can you understand the frustration of some of the protesters out there who are saying this disparity is ruining our future?
Well, I understand the frustration that people have, because I came out of poverty in my own life and I had to work my way out of it. And the way that you can work your way out of it is by having jobs. And so we have a real problem right now with unemployment, particularly among youth, and particularly among African American youth and Hispanic youth. They need a leg up. And we saw that with our own foster children. They needed a good education and they needed an ability to have entry-level jobs. We don't have that. So the best thing that we could do is focus on job creation. We're not seeing that under President Obama's policies. For 34 months, we haven't seen really an increase until just this last week in the jobs report. But part of that problem is a lot of people fell off unemployment rate.
But you agree, though, that Warren Buffett should not pay a lower tax rate than his secretary.
Course.
I mean, it's outrageous. You look, and let's talk about how we do this. How do we make it so the largest corporations in the world don't pay less in taxes than your foster kids that go out into the workforce? That's outrageous, whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, a conservative, a liberal.
And you're both exactly right. That's why one of my principles in reforming the tax code is to make sure that GE pays as much as Google or another company, because GE only had an effective tax rate of 7% this last year. Google's was, I think, 21%. If you look at Marathon Oil, I think theirs was a 49% effective tax rates. Why are these corporations paying such different rates? It's because they have sweetheart deals that were carved out for them in the tax code. That's why I want to abolish it, and instead of sweetheart deals, have everyone have a level playing field.
You mean sweetheart deals that are created by people who get paid $100 million in Washington?
Sort of like that.
You know, it's so
when they cash in on their Washington power.
So convenient.
Is it not funny? I know you've heard this a million times. I heard this a million times in Congress. You always have lobbyists that will come into your office, Willie, and they go, "Hey, let me tell you something, Congressman. All I want is a level playing field," which means they want
a little
you
more level for
to
some
go
people
into
more
the
than
tax.
others.
But they all say the same thing. And by the way, the lobbyists in Washington, and explain this, lobbyists on K Street, for the most part, aren't asking for money from Washington. They're asking for tax breaks to carve up that code and make it more convoluted so they pay little in taxes.
And have the government rub out your competitors. That's really what it is. And the tax code is about 3.8 million words. And the reason why is because it's carve-outs and sweetheart deals. That's what influence peddlers do. And that is the playground, is the tax code. It's crony capitalism.
And I get sick and tired of people saying, whether I'm a Republican or a Democrat, I believe in the market. There is no free market
Joe,
when you've got crony capitalism.
And if you want to talk about a poster child for crony capitalism, it would be Newt Gingrich as the ultimate consummate influence peddler. But also Mitt Romney is also cut out of the same cloth in that he has been a consummate Washington, D.C. insider. That's why the Tea Party movement is looking for someone different, somebody who's a fighter, somebody who's going to stand up for them and their values. It's not Newt and it's not Mitt.
Can I ask you about Mitt Romney? He's never worked in Washington. He's never been a member of Congress. So how is he a Washington insider?
Well, he's a Washington insider in that he's a part of that whole scene that stands for the same values. He was acting in that same form and that same type when he was governor of Massachusetts.
All right, a little housekeeping before you go. Is there any scenario in which you would vote for a tax on millionaires if it keeps small businesses out of the loop there?
No, I would not, because if you look historically at the data, it has led to less job creation than more, and it drove people out of the state of New Jersey to go locate elsewhere when they did it there.
Mm-hmm. And will you take part in the Donald Trump debate?
Good question. I think only one is accepted so far, which is Newt Gingrich. I actually like Donald Trump. I think he's.
We like Donald Trump.
We do too.
I think he's a great guy. I like him
personally.
We haven't made the decision. We're trying to figure it out. It comes right before the Iowa caucuses, so we still may.
So Michele Bachmann, let me just say we have said some tough things about you on this show. But a week or two ago, we reached out to you all after Jimmy Fallon. We thought you were great on Jimmy Fallon in the debate,
and I'm here
in the debate, and you're here, and we really think that this race is wide open.
It's wide open.
We
There's
think
no
Iowa.
question.
How long till Iowa? 30 days.
4 weeks from today.
We're less
4
than
weeks
the
from
window.
today.
Yeah.
So you think you have another charge
Oh,
there?
we've got more than a shot. Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm excited to be there. We'll be there this week.
Best of luck to you.
Thank you.
Thank
the
you
book
for
Merry Christmas to all of you.
Merry Christmas to you. The book is Core of Conviction. And Michele Bachmann will be watching in Iowa.
Thank you.